Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to GeekWatch, a subsidiary of the monastery, the open bar of the internet. I am your one and only gaming monk, better known as Mildra, and with me I have 1, 2, 3, 4 good brothers. Ha 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 ha! We have the man guiding you through all of your VTubers, good brother Shades. Old habits die hard, I guess.
Doesn't matter. The Shades is still around.
Mm-hmm. Our resident doctor on TV, good brother Dr. Novell.
Doctor is in.
Our flamboyant flyer and living Wikipedia, and occasional parrot, good brother Flutter.
Hello.
And the man of 1,000 runes, the CEO of Zadari Enterprises, and the bane of my fucking existence, good brother Xanatrix.
Zadari Enterprises would like to remind you that we shall never hold a license longer than we should while doing nothing with it. We will iterate on every last thing we've taken from you until it is ours, and you can no longer have it, because we make the best of all giant robots. Come join our R&D group today. We need more test pilots.
So, with that in mind, there's a term that's gotten thrown around in the last few years known as a vexatious litigant. Someone who seems to litigate for the most petty of reasons and is the first person who's likely going to piss off the judge in any court, and thus violating the first rule of the court: don't piss off the judge. A lesson that Marvel had to learn the hard way back in the 90s.
Ooh.
Yeah, some of you think that Marvel bullshit is some new thing. No, Marvel's always had some degree of dumbass drama. Going all the way back to the 70s. But that's a whole other story that I may get into later. But the point is that for as annoying as certain people are when it comes to copyright and trademark laws, there will always be one that will stick in the craw of mech fans everywhere, and that is today's subject matter. Coinciding with the grand return to doing the Robotech campaign on Saturdays, shameless plug, is the fact that while I didn't do it every single time because a bit of a habit, I intended for this campaign to end off with 3 words: fuck Harmony Gold.
Harmony Gold.
Fuck Harmony Gold.
And I realize that there are some people new to the greater anime landscape that don't quite know why this particular company has that amount of hatred. But to put it in broad strokes, and we will get into the details, this is mech fans hate this company, Transformers fans hate them, and BattleTech fans hate them. For largely similar reasons. Now, there's several names that are part of why. The one that I feel is one who gets more shit than they deserve is Carl Masick. He was brought in back in the 80s to handle getting various anime localized, even if it was under different names. Obviously, you have the whole thing with Robotech, but there was also Mazinger Z being referred to as Tranzor Z.
Nice.
And of course, Go Line becoming Voltron, but the Go Line thing is a whole other can of worms that I'm not going to get into today.
Right.
If I was to cover that would deserve its own episode. And truth be told, there's a bunch of stuff that I'm just not interested in covering, like the vehicle-based Voltron, and I would only cover Legendary Defenders if by some miracle I can get Alti in here.
Eh.
Because during that show's run, I had some back and forth with her about some of the changes that happened over the seasons with that series. But the point is, with Carl, as I've done in the past, with Carl Masak, I'm putting him in a little bubble. And I'm putting that bubble right off into the corner. So everything we say does not reflect on him, because he's in his bubble. Now, Harmony Gold as a production company, has their fingers in a lot of pies. Not just their anime licensing. Even if that is the big thing. But also doing real estate, also operating a screening room in LA, having a post-production recording studio, although it's one that's handled by the CEO's son, so make that what you will. Working with the Mediaset working within the Mediaset conglomerate, I'll get to that. But it was founded in 83. It had its start in the late 70s. And they had a bit of a working relationship at various points with Paramount Pictures. It was originally largely to set up trading movie rights internationally, especially with some folks in Hong Kong who they met at a trade fair in Cannes. But I'd say the big breakout with them was being involved in the distribution of the Shaka Zulu miniseries. Which was a bit of a deal because it was done in spite of all the sanctions with South Africa around that time. I mean, this was 1983. Let's keep that in mind.
Right.
And it ended up becoming a massive success. And of course, then in '85 they hire Carl Masak to handle adaptation of anime. Now, this is one of those the first case of this, and I really should have done the detective outfit, which I don't have yet. Because in some of the other places I've talked about this, I've mentioned counting up Harmony Gold's sins. Which totally isn't timed because of a certain project on the way.
I get the feeling that if you were to try to count their sins using like a parking meter or something, one that would just kind of tick along for each sin that they have, you could use it as a fan.
It'd probably make a pretty good fan too, yeah.
Yeah, we'll just use a parking meter in the UK.
Ha!
But now, obviously, the big part of the infamy has been Robotech, which is a Frankensteining of 3 anime: Macross, Southern Cross, and Mospeada. Now, the claim that was made was that Carl did not want to do that. He mainly just wanted to adapt Macross at the time. However, the reason that Harmony Gold has cited was that this was done to reach that 65 episode minimum for syndication. Especially since in Japan, each of the 3 animated as weekly series, not doing 5 episodes a week, i.e. after school. But it was successful enough that there were attempts to try and do more of it, And this is where the complications come in, because the first attempt to do more of Robotech was the Sentinels back in '88. The Sentinels ultimately ended up being just a glorified pilot, because only 5 episodes were made, and due to economic issues, it never got any further than that.
Right.
And supposedly it had to do with the economic exchange rate crash of the '80s, which caused Matchbox, who was partnering and bankrolling the thing, to drop out of the thing. Harmony Gold didn't have the money, and the whole thing just fell out. All that exists was what amounts to a 75-minute pilot. Basically 3 episodes when they had planned for 65. If anything, Palladium got more out of this, because they made a Sentinels supplement book.
Nice.
But of course, then there was another infamous attempt to try and do more of Robotech with a CG project called Robotech 3000, which Carl Macek did write. And the CG was going to be handled by the same team that did, The Third Dimension. Voltron fans don't have a whole lot of nice things to say about The Third Dimension.
I can't imagine why.
Me neither.
I remember finding it kind of when I saw a few episodes back then, and I ended up watching some now, and I'm like, okay, now I can understand why some people really didn't care for this. But the trailer for Robotech 3000 was so negatively received when it was shown at FanimeCon in 2000 that the project was killed right then and there. Tatsunoko attempted to salvage it, but it didn't work.
Also not a surprise.
Yeah. And of course, in the mid 2000s, they would partner with Funimation to do the Shadow Chronicles. And if you were on any sort of geek culture website, you were seeing banner ads for the Shadow Chronicles fucking everywhere for months.
Yes.
Because I guess they really wanted the Shadow Chronicles to be this launching off point for future installments of Robotech.
It was not a launching off point for future installments of Robotech.
No, it was one DVD and that was it.
Wow.
A DVD I have.
Yeah. And basically a glorified movie that went about 88 minutes. Apparently it was supposed to release earlier than it did, but part of that was due to the fact that at one point a term Shadow Force Megazord was brought up that caused a bunch of legal conundrums.
Not surprising,
Mm-hmm.
all things considered.
But apparently it had at least 3 different writers, because it kept getting passed around until finally Ford Riley was the one who had written it. But it wasn't completed until 2006, and I remember the film not being bad per se, but it was just a case of kind of eh.
Yeah. It's pretty meh.
And I remember the director sometime afterwards saying that there were plans on doing a sequel called Shadow Rising, but nothing came out of that. Then in 2012, there was that announcement that Love Live Alive would pave the way for Shadow Rising, It didn't.
There are a lot of things they tried that just did not work.
Mm-hmm. But even up to 2017, they said that follow-ups to it were not canceled. But, and of course, when it comes to this particular curse, I'd be remiss if I didn't point out the attempt to do a live-action Robotech that never got off the ground, even though to this day they're insisting that it's still in the works.
Yeah, I think there's a reason why they won't let that one die, because they know what will happen if they do, and we'll be getting to that soon.
The last that I heard of it was years ago. I think around I want to say 2017, and that was the fact that the writer that they had nailed down for it jumped ship and was writing for the Kingsman series.
I wonder why.
And after that, they were like, "We're gonna get a writer eventually," and they I guess they were a bit distracted when it came to getting one, because right around the same time they were in not one but two lawsuits. One with Harebrained Schemes and one with Piranha Games. I'll get to that later. But it is now I know for a lot of people they're mostly going to be known as the people who sit on Macross and have to be dragged kicking and screaming to get any of the Macross stuff that's shown up in Japan into the States. And hell, for the longest time, I had the feeling that they were the reason why a lot of Super Robot Wars stuff wouldn't come stateside, because they wouldn't be willing to play ball.
And that's likely true, considering that it's been quite some time since Macross was actually in a Super Robot Wars game. I think 2018 was the last appearance. Give me a chance to check the Master Series list. Let's go look at Macross. So, the last appearance of SDF Macross was in Super Robot Wars Alpha Gaiden. The last appearance of the Do You Remember Love movie was in Scramble Commander 2. I'm not counting the mobile games such as Cross Omega and Dimension Diver. Macross Plus was last in Alpha 3rd. Let me see. Macross 7, which is the best one because of Sound Force, was in Z3 Chapters 1 and 2. Let's see. Macross Zero was in Scramble Commander 2 in 2007. Macross Frontier was in Link, and then later on in Z2's Chapter 1 and 2. The False Songstress was in BX. I'm sure BX was after. I'm pretty sure BX is the most recent of all those. Macross Dynamite 7 was Z3. Wings of Goodbye was Z3 and BX. Macross 30 was in BX. BX was 2015, excuse me. Delta was in... Delta doesn't count. Delta's appearance was in Cross Omega. And Cross Omega was one of the mobile games. So, no, the last main series appearance of Macross was 2015.
Yeah.
In Super Robot Wars. And that's I think that's telling, because usually if it's a popular series, a popular mecha series, even if they don't use a main series such as Mazinger, or they'll use side materials from Mazinger, such as Majin Kaiser, or with Getter, if they're not using main Getter, they'll at least use side materials, such as with Super Robot Wars 30, Getter Devolution. But the fact that there's been zero Macross in anything but the mobile games since then is telling.
Yeah.
And even then, it's Cross Omega. I haven't seen a mention of Macross in Dimension Diver at all. And Cross Omega shut down, so...
which does make me wonder how we were able to get Macross Plus distributed by ADV Films. I'm guessing the bigger reason that was able to happen was because ADV went straight to Big West instead of going to Harmony Gold. Because in Japan, Big West is technically the owner of the IP.
Yeah.
I'm guessing it's either that or Tatsunoko, but there was some kind of trickery going on, because this was pretty early ADV when that happened.
Yeah.
But the big reason why I'm not throwing Carl Macek under the bus is because after his short time with Harmony Gold, he would then go on to found Streamline Pictures. And they ended up getting a lot of stuff dubbed and released in the States. Including things like Laputa, My Neighbor Totoro, the original attempt with Akira, the Castle at Cagliostro, which we've talked about, the original attempt at Fist of the North Star, the first Vampire Hunter D movie, as well as stuff like 3x3 Eyes, which I may want to take a look at later, as well as a lot of early collaborations with ADV, including something that we've talked about on this channel in the past, Megazone 23.
Good old Megazone 23.
Yeah. They also were responsible for being part of the cluster of people working getting Kashan Robot Hunter stateside.
I think they eventually got the OVA, the 4-episode OVA stateside.
But
because I've seen that in both English and Japanese. The English is actually pretty good. It's a little hammy, but This is back in the golden age of voice actors not quite knowing what to do with some of these characters, and directors not quite knowing what to do. So you get some hammy stuff that's actually quite iconic.
Yeah. Well, and if what Dave had said at that panel that I was at all those years ago is any indication, I think some directors were encouraging the ham.
Of course.
I think you were there for that with that whole Cartoon Boy story.
Yes, maybe. Yes.
Wonder,
You weren't. That was at MetroCon a few years ago. I'm not sure if you were at that panel, John.
I don't remember that. I don't think I was there for any panels.
I was, because I've made no secret about my love for Orphan, and that was Dave Matranga's first role in anime. Period. Like he's admitted up until that point he was mostly just doing commercial stuff in the Texas area. Then he gets talked into doing this whole thing, and he had to learn that there's a difference between on-camera acting and voice acting, because the director kept telling him, "Amp it up, Cartoon Boy," and the name just stuck. But and yeah, there's definitely a transition when somebody who's mostly done like stage or on camera tries to do voice acting. Some people can hack it, but some people can't. But part of the reason I'm willing to defend Carl is he got a lot of shit in the early incarnations of that sub versus dub debate. And while I do think there's some merit to that debate, I do think some people got a little out of hand with it.
As they always do.
Not everybody who was making alterations was for kids. for instance. Like, sometimes the changes were forced upon them. You know, because of the way TV broadcasters worked. That and even to a certain extent, even to this day, you still have that stigma of animation being a kid's product. And that kind of shit is always going to roll downhill. But after the Sentinels and Robotech 3000, the big reason I brought up those is there's kind of this pattern of Harmony Gold trying to force their version of Robotech and Macross and all of that onto the public, and it just not working. Either they get in their own damn way, or they do something that the public does not want. And you know how it is. Once is an anomaly, twice is a coincidence, 3 times a pattern. It does make me wonder if somebody put a hex on them or something. I mean, I'm not going to say that didn't happen, but I went down a whole rabbit hole about the Andretti curse all those years ago. And when you consider how nobody in the Andretti family has won the biggest race in May over like 2 generations since that incident, can you really blame me for thinking that there may be some witchcraft going on?
It was Agatha
Definitely a little
all
sus
along,
there, and no, I'm
which
not
we don't
gonna-
talk about.
Say again, Doc?
It was Agatha all along, which we don't talk about.
Ha. But, and obviously in the early 2000s there was the partnership they had with ADV to re-release Robotech. But it seems that that's the only time they've had some degree of success, is just putting out what came before. I do remember in that same early 2000s there was a good amount of push to try and get more Robotech video games. I remember Battlecry getting multiple SKUs around that time. And that's just the appetizer. The main course thing has been the fact that in the years since, they have tried to shut down every single attempt for anyone else to do anything more regarding Macross.
Here's where we get to the meat of the matter.
Yeah. Now, the earliest bit of bullshit with this had to do with Battletech. Now, this has to do with the designs of 3 battle mechs in Battletech: the Warhammer, the Valkyrie, and the Marauder, which were brought straight into Battletech from Macross and licensed directly from Tatsunoko Productions / Studio Nue. And then apparently Harmony Gold was acted like they should have been consulted on the matter after an overlapping rights issue that didn't get carried outward until a decade after the fact. Supposedly the licensing was handled by a company called 20th Century Imports, but the ultimate result was you can have those mechs in the books, you just can't show them, which led to them being referred to as the unseen mechs. Later on, they were referred to as the reseen mechs. And then they would go after FASA again, claiming that some images and trailers from Mech Warrior were close to the line. They claimed that the images portrayed mechs they owned the right to, according to a legal settlement from 1996. And then they would go. Then some years later, when we get the BattleTech game from Harebrained Schemes, they would go after both Catalyst, Harebrained Schemes, and Piranha Games over the unseen mechs, claiming that they were in there. Primarily, Harebrained was the first one they were taking shots at, but this was one of those cases of a legal gray area, because it's a matter of because like with any sort of "you copied me on this and I don't like your face either," how similar it was is really up to debate. And ultimately, the judge in that case had ruled that it was dismissed without prejudice in the case of Piranha Games, who are the developers of MechWarrior Online, and dismissed with prejudice in the case of Harebrained Schemes. So they could revisit this with Piranha, but they never did. And to my knowledge, they haven't.
I think because they realized if they tried again, they would have. If they didn't have enough to go after it, this next time they wouldn't get so lucky.
That, and I'd imagine that their attempt to try and get at them with this one was right around the time that they were still trying to get that live action movie out into the public, and losing some of your big staff, and you still don't even have a script done. That was why you had that right. That was why you were looking for a writer. I think that's part of the reason why why in the last few years they've attempted to throw up their hands. But of course, then not figuring that they haven't pissed off enough people, there was that incident in 2013 where they claimed that the exclusive set for San Diego Comic-Con that year for G.I. Joe and the Transformers: The Epic Conclusion violated their license. That was dismissed with prejudice. I'd imagine it's because I think a lot of court judges by this point were just sick of Harmony Gold's bullshit and how they kept showing up for the same thing of, these guys are using our mechs, even though they're not yours. So we are gonna sue them. But then I guess they decided that they were going to get desperate in 2016, because then they decided to start arbitration against Tatsunoko.
That's not going to go so well. Tatsunoko, if anything, while the name isn't as well known as, say, Toei, they're technically the same size, if not a little bit bigger in certain ways.
Yeah.
Like, people know Toei because, well, Toei is half of everything that comes out of Japan in almost any way, live action wise, especially when it comes to Toku.
Yeah.
Tatsunoko. That's a hidden gem and a deep cut, but everything Tatsunoko seems to do is hidden gold.
Yeah.
And they've got a very long history.
Which is why you could make a game like Tatsunoko vs. Capcom and make it work.
God, I love that game.
But
I like playing Fisher and Robot Hunter and kicking people's asses with Zero as his partner.
but then now when it came to that arbitration, I believe the ruling was that Harmony Gold could keep the licensing until it expired. And the thing is, by 2021, Harmony Gold and Big West had started to reach some degree of agreements regarding Macross and Robotech, allowing for international distribution of the original Macross.
Yep.
And Harmony Gold's name is still on it, but that's about it. Basically, Harmony Gold and Big West are cooperating on any future projects. But the problem is, by that point, the damage was done, and it's still up in the air about whether things like Seven, Frontier, and Delta are even going to come stateside. Because when they did that whole "fine, we'll release Macross," they still insisted on saying, "We're not going to allow the distribution of Do You Remember Love,"
which is stupid.
Stupid and confusing, because now it's been a while since I saw it, but as I recall, Do You Remember Love was essentially a film version of the original story.
Sort of, with some weird changes. And then in later parts of Macross, Do You Remember Love is referred to as an in-universe movie. Do You Remember Love is a confusing bit. I'll put it that way.
Yeah. But to insist that it not be distributed all of these years later, it feels like that one bully who's trying. Yeah, it does feel like spite.
And it's not the good kind of spite like what we have.
Mm-hmm. It feels like they wanted to have total control over anything Macross related in outside of Japan, and the fact that stuff was being made without their approval in Japan feels like they are bitter about it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That does seem to be the impression.
And that includes plenty of other materials. But I also can't help but wonder that part of the reason why they were so litigation heavy has to do with the legal problems that their founder Frank Argama has. He's had several Swiss bank accounts frozen. There was the fact that he was accused of tax fraud and embezzlement and false accounting of former Prime Minister Silvio Berlusconi. Apologies if I mispronounced. There was the whole shitstorm with him and Mediaset, which is a mass media company in Italy. He was convicted for buying and selling of U.S. film rights to that media company at inflated prices. He wasn't directly in prison because around this time he was 70 years old. There was also the whole thing of him getting charged in a different case over tax fraud. And some of the charges were dropped due to expiring statutes. And in 2016, all of the charges were dropped. And even with that, some of the people at Mediaset were convicted and sentenced to imprisonment for 13 months.
Why is this not surprising?
Yeah. But the point is that there's a part of me that's like, well, maybe if they were blowing all this money on this kind of trial, maybe they wanted to try and sue others to see if they could recoup the losses or something. certainly wouldn't be out of the ordinary. But and I didn't get the full details, but I also recall hearing that the Transformers community hates Harmony Gold because they tried to pick fights with Hasbro regarding the design of Jetfire.
Yeah.
Now, this is one of those cases. I will completely admit that while I delve into my fair share of Transformers from time to time, I'm not going to consider myself an expert, since most of my delving deals with the TV series and not with the toys. I don't.
Right.
That's nothing against people who do delve with the toys, but that's just not my area of expertise. And the story that as I've understood it is the design of Jetfire, I think in the G2 era, was accused of being too similar to the design of the Valkyrie. And then this was revisited with Armada, and in the years since, both back in the G2 era and in the Armada era, Hasbro's had to go to great lengths to modify the design so that it doesn't look like the Valkyrie, or at least look like the Valkyrie enough to piss off Harmony Gold.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But the big reason why the Macross thing sticks in so many people's craw is because they have had this long-standing history of sitting on the license and doing nothing with it, and has been a centerpiece in a lot of arguments regarding the way licensing works. That there should be a if you don't use it, you lose it.
I would argue the same should apply to copyrights.
Mildra one prayer
Or
beats hello
trademarks,
all
at
three
least.
fuck Harmony Gold.
Hello there, Riona. And yeah, there's definitely that, because they seem to get. I'm reminded of TSR in the late '80s, where more money was tied in the lawsuits that they were doing to pretty much anybody who's putting up house rules, rather than the money going to creating products. Because while Harmony Gold was producing and distributing various movies, as far as Macross went, they were just sitting on it, not even distributing the post Space War 1 stuff, like post original series. They weren't doing any of that, but instead trying to put forth stuff that nobody asked for. And every time they did, something would end up happening. It's like the universe was conspiring to keep them from trying to put out some half-assed copy. And there's also the fact that a good way to get people pissed off is to just throw the lawyers at anything and everything. That's why people have an issue with Disney lawyers, even though the Florida incident showed that they have flaws. Why people are really going to have an issue with Nintendo, given recent events.
Yeah.
And,
I don't think they're going to win that one, to be honest. Especially since that patent was put into place May of this year. So
that, and even if they did win, it would be a PR nightmare for them. And if they're planning on doing a Switch 2, which I keep hearing about, that's good. That's gonna really put a damper on the sales of that.
Yep.
Yeah.
But there have been. I've heard some good things about things like Frontier and Delta, and the main way that somebody's going to get a hold of those is through fan subs. It also helps harden my resolve when it comes to my attitude towards sailing the high seas, because I'm not going to say that should be your first choice, but it should not be your only choice. If somebody's going to cry poor about the matter, I'm like, well, give me an actual choice, and maybe I'll throw money your way.
Exactly.
I think we had said that when we did that look back at the Rurouni Kenshin OVAs, which you can still get, but you're going to be paying a lot of money. And just a cursory glance, and I couldn't find one that was less than $100.
Oof.
And same thing applied with Karas. Good fucking luck finding that. But in that same vein, Zan, if I recall, weren't some of the Macross mechs in Another Century's episode?
Let me check.
Which is kind of adjacent to the SRW universe.
Like I said, let me check. Ace. I'm not sure if they were in the Ace series. I mean, it is Bon Presto, so there is a big chance. Let me see if they...
Because in terms of Macross adjacent video games, the last thing that we got was Battle Cry.
Yeah.
And that was 6th generation consoles. So that should tell you how long it's been.
Okay. In the first Ace, no, there was no Macross. And if I had to, probably going to carry over to the other games, from what I can see. So I don't think Macross was in the Another Centuries episode games.
I can't imagine why. But I recall one of you saying earlier that at one point when it came to Dragon Ball, they wanted to change Goku's name into Zero, which makes no damn sense.
I am. That was Doc. Doc who brought that up.
Yeah, I don't. There seems to be a certain thing about wanting to localize names into some things that are less difficult for people to pronounce. The reason why characters like Bulma were spared is because Toriyama had the good sense to put her name on her clothing.
Meaning you couldn't change it because otherwise be like, well, what's this Bulma thing about?
Oh, it's just the brand of clothing I wear. That'd be one way you could get around it, but then you have to come up with that same excuse for everyone, and then, yeah. And heaven help you if you have a character that's got the same name as an actual brand.
Okay, no, I was wrong. Looking at Ace 2, there was Do You Remember Love? Looking at Ace 3, I had to fucking chew through stuff. Ace 3 seems to have a Valkyrie on the actual like cover.
But I guess I could liken the reason for this sort of vexatious hate is do you guys remember the Mr. Edge himself, Tim Langdell? It's in a similar vibe. Somebody thinking that they have this unilateral ownership of this one thing, and picking fights with everybody as a result of that.
I can see it.
But I'd say the big reason why they're so defensive of that IP is because that's really the only thing that's made them money since Shaka Zulu.
Might be, and they're making bank off of continuing royalties, essentially.
Yeah.
and it's because if you look up patent troll in the dictionary, well, you're gonna find Harmony Gold, and it's the big problem has been the whole sitting on IP, but I will admit there was one thing that that some of HG's staff tried to claim that really did not help their case at all, and that was them claiming that they made a better product.
Hey, Harmony Gold seriously thinks they did.
Which is about as stupid as when one of the two dumbass writers for Ruby tried to claim that they weren't anime and that they were better than anime.
Missing the goddamn point if there ever was one.
But there's still attempts to try and renew the license on the possibility that they might get partial distribution credit for something like Delta. But it's only been in the last couple of years that they've started to loosen the grip, and again I largely think that they have exacerbated the situation between them and Big West.
I think what it is I think they holding on to Macross has been the only thing keeping that company alive. And they're starting to realize that even that no longer is viable. They have to at least allow some distribution and get this something out there so they can make money off it, or else they're going to be screwed.
Although from what I've been told, this particular issue is more of a U.S. issue, because in places like Australia and in the UK, they did not win those legal fights. Supposedly the Australian courts terminated Harmony Gold's rights with prejudice. Which I'm not versed in Australian law. If that was the case, good on the Aussies. And well, Max Factory has released Macross figures in the UK, so their grip is not as ironclad as they'd like it to be.
Thankfully.
And I think in the last 4 years there's been inroads that Big West has made to try and get rights back, which does make things a bit optimistic. But I have a feeling it's not going to it's going to be a long, slow process, because I think Harmony Gold is going to throw everything into the sink to try and clog it up as long as they can.
Yeah, that's what they do.
I'd imagine that it's a mix of the amount of shit that they get for that, and the fact that every time they try and do more Robotech stuff themselves, it ends up backfiring. Now, obviously, the two things that technically didn't backfire were the TTRPGs. Although, in the case of Robotech Tactics, that managed to go up in flames for reasons that weren't Harmony Gold's fault. It was Simbeta who was largely responsible for that. And there's been a handful of films that they've been involved in, but they haven't done any film distribution since 2002. Well, actually, I have to take that back. They were responsible for film distribution in 2014, but that's about it. Oh yeah, and then there was that attempt to try and Frankenstein in Megazone 23 as Robotech the movie.
Oh, right.
Yeah, that didn't work.
That didn't work, and the only reason I know about it is because I had to dig that up when researching Megazone 23. And the fact that it was never technically distributed as such, it was done at one theater in Texas and never done again.
Yep.
They tried to pull a Doki Doki Panic to Super Mario Bros. 2 on that thing.
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
And that was 2 years before they tried to do The Sentinels, which was in '88. Which, as I mentioned before, only 3 episodes were made before economic issues caused that to go belly up. And as also mentioned, the 3000 project never got off the ground. There was the attempt to remaster back in 2003, but that's just a remaster. Anybody can do a remaster.
Right.
And I should note that Macross isn't the only time they did this whole Frankenstein amalgamation.
It's just their most famous.
Yeah. The other one that happened right around the same
The
time.
schizo cut where they weld whole plots together.
Yeah. The other one was Captain Harlock and the Queen of 1,000 Years. Which was them trying to Frankenstein together Captain Harlock and Queen Millennia.
I mean, Arcadia of my youth, what?
Wasn't that a few... Wasn't Arcadia a few years after that? Because Queen Millennia was 81.
I'm making it. Let me riff.
Fair.
Let me riff. Also, Arcadia of my youth was 82.
Okay, then that certainly fits then. But and as far as why, like I said, it's whether or not it's the full truth, there probably is some truth to the whole TV networks wanted 65 episodes. Especially for the whole after school time slot.
Yeah, back in the 80s, I could actually buy that. Nowadays, it probably wouldn't fly, but back then, yeah, considering the only way you could do stuff was on TV, I could see that being a valid argument.
That, and there was just this feeding frenzy to get as much shit as you could on television because of the regulations being relaxed. Which is why you have so many things that have been since derided as glorified toy commercials from that era.
Oh god, yeah.
But I do remember looking at the BattleTech designs that were at the center of the Harebrained suit. And if I'm being honest, I couldn't reasonably say it's a 1-to-1. Especially since we're dealing with generational art style iterations, from the original art books of BattleTech when it was originally called Battle Droids, which that didn't last long because Lucas had something to say about that.
Yeah, poor Harebrained, man, they just keep getting fucked over.
They did good with Shadowrun, but that's largely because with Shadowrun you don't have to deal with some extra company. You just have to deal with Catalyst. And while Catalyst has their issues, they're nowhere near this level of bullshit.
Yeah, but I would still say dealing with Catalyst is punishment enough.
Yeah, I'm not gonna deny that, especially recently.
We're gonna just chuck this up to a lesser of two evils here.
Yeah.
But let me see if I can dig up some of the unseen designs, which means I'm gonna have to go into Sarna. And there were quite a few. Actually, shit, there's a lot of designs that were on the unseen list. There's the Archer, the Bane, the Battlemaster, the Black Python, the Crusader, the Glass Spider, also known as the Galahad, the Griffin and the Griffin 2C, and a lot of different designs. But just as a example, so this is the original. And I wish I could show you guys on screen for this, but you can look this kind of thing up. So the first image I'm going to show you is the unseen version. This was from Tactical Readout 3025.
Yeah.
And this is the Wolverine. And this is the version that was on the cover of the Betrayal of Ideals novel.
Denny.
I see some minor similarities, but not near enough to be considered a. If I were a judge, I would have not called this infringement. They're not close. They're not even close.
The most you could argue is a similar silhouette, but a similar silhouette means that it's just the same generic shape.
Yeah. In the same vein, let's go with a mech that's a little more iconic. Let's go with the Warhammer.
Oh God.
This is the Warhammer design. This is the unseen Warhammer design. This one is from TRO 3025.
Okay.
And this is the concept design for the Warhammer in MechWarrior Online, and this was used in their lawsuit.
That's a little closer.
Yeah,
but still not the same.
Yeah, the first one, like you said, it has a similar silhouette, but the guy apparently suffered through the French Revolution or something.
Yeah, whereas this one's a little the silhouette is a lot closer, and some of the details are a lot closer. But there's still enough differences there that I couldn't say that they're the same. Like, the biggest closeness is the fact that they both have arms that are guns. But there are plenty of mechs in BattleTech that have arms that are just guns.
Yeah. I mean, well, there's a couple other things. They both have a missile pod on their
right shoulder.
On their right shoulder. But like the Raider on the on the left shoulder, that looks very different. The top picture has those little spikes on the knee, above the knees that the official design doesn't have. Like there's
also has auto cannons in the head and a few other things that aren't on the lower picture.
Yeah, so they're similar for sure, but not close enough.
I would not say that this is the same robot. I would say that it's similar robot, and that the biggest similarity is guns for arms.
Yeah, and I'd say one of the last iconic entries I'll go with is one of my personal favorite mechs is the Marauder.
I knew it. Yeah.
That's the original from the TRO book, and then we have the Marauder from Online.
Now the Marauder from The Marauder from online, the only I know why what they're going for with the similarities there. The fact that again both arms are guns shaped that way, and the fact that there's a cannon on the head, and the fact that it's reverse joint.
Yeah.
Reverse knee joint. But beyond those things, out of the three, this one's the one that probably would be closest to infringement, but still not close enough.
Pretty much, and even with that, the bigger question is it close enough to say that they are infringing? And
none of that. No, none of those are close enough, in my opinion.
Yeah, which is
of course, I'm also not a copyright attorney, so.
Well, I remember watching Leonard French's take on the matter when he covered this.
Yep.
And he had said. He wasn't willing to put his foot down yes or no on the matter. He felt that there was way too much gray area on it.
Yeah.
And was like it's really going to come down to whether or not a judge sees it that way. But from my perspective, there's way too much wiggle room to say definitively one way or the other. And I know Vanguardian is saying you just make Macross robots in Gundam Breaker. That's not exactly saying much because you can make just about anything in Gundam Breaker.
Yeah. not to mention the fact that while Gundam Breaker has a high amount of customization and allows people to make some really cool shit, we also want Macross video games and Macross media. We want Macross, we want Southern Cross, we want Mospeada. We want these things to have more. We want them to be able to come to the US and the West, and because of Harmony Gold, they can't.
I understand the virtue of saying support the official release, but there's a major flaw with that tagline. When the
official release is fucked.
Yeah. Again, it's the thing of we're not endorsing piracy, but we're also not endorsing giving people no choice.
He says that because he has to. I say yar har, hoist a flag. I mean, we can't sue them. They're a giant company, and they've actually sued other people. So
yeah, that's what causes so much frustration with them. The fact that they are. Zen, would you consider them a vexatious litigant?
In some cases, probably. And Game Fan says we'll get more SRW games overseas. Yes, Super Robot Wars 30 proved that they have an
audience.
An audience, and a major one at that. I mean, and the entire reason 30 was put out on Steam was because VX and T were given Southeast Asia English translations that got a fuck ton of imports.
Yeah.
But that doesn't fix the issue with Macross itself.
Yeah. That only worked because they took Macross out. That's the reason why they haven't never done an English release outside of some of the OG games, because they could not legally release them for fear of Harmony Gold suing them into oblivion.
Maybe more than that. Even when the games that don't have Macross present, a lot of them didn't get translated either due to thinking there wasn't an audience, or due to the sheer amount of places they would have to license on this side compared to the 3 places they have to license in Japan.
I'd say that's largely a consequence of that feeding frenzy of licensing in the 2000s.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, like, think of how many series are in an average SRW game, and how probably each and every one of them is owned by a different studio over in the West.
In the last decade or so, I'd say that's started to shore up. Now there's only a few studios that are actually doing this kind of thing, and it's become a little bit easier, which is why they finally probably pulled the trigger.
Yes, absolutely. But all that aside, because Super Robot Wars is not the focus here, as much as I fucking love Super Robot Wars, the fact that Super Robot Wars got attention and is going to probably get more Western releases now because of 30 is not going to fix Harmony Gold and their fucking chokehold on Macross and on Southern Cross and on Mospeada, which, while I am someone who has watched all three, and honestly I still just love Macross most, I understand there are fans of all of those in the West, and they want to see more, and they want to do more. And because of the chokehold, and because Macross is the only one that's really gotten expansions in Japan, Southern Cross and Mospeada are kind of dead in the water, even if the rights come back, which is a fucking terrible waste.
Especially...
And the issue here is not that there are not alternative ways to get access to Macross and other properties. The issue here is that expansion of those properties in the West is blocked by one fucking bully. That's the issue that we're discussing here, Vanguardian. And that's the primary focus for fuck Harmony Gold. They stand in the way of great usage of great properties, and they do it because they're fucking bullies. At the end of the day, they're fucking bullies that just want to keep their toys to themselves and fuck everybody else.
And when it comes to that particular thing, bully is certainly a very good term, because the moment things don't go their way, you will inevitably see them cry foul.
Yeah.
We've seen that countless times where they end up getting blasted in court, and then they act like the other person was the bad guy.
Except nobody's buying it anymore.
I don't think anybody bought it even back then.
No, because...
No, they did not. They did not almost prevent Tatsunoko versus Capcom from overseas release. We talked about that. They tried to sue Tatsunoko. Tatsunoko basically laughed and "I've got the bigger dick here," and Harmony Gold had to slink off into the shadows.
And let's be
Harmony
honest.
Gold going after Bandai. Fuck. Bandai would just be like, "You, little man, sit down before we crush you underfoot." Harmony Gold thinks they've got the biggest swinging dick no matter what they do, and then when somebody actually big comes along and they try to fight them, this is not no David versus Goliath story. This is, you are an ant, I am a giant. Fuck off.
I mean, the big reason why they're going to desperately hold on to that, as mentioned before, is that they don't have much in the way of anything else. I mean, there's certainly been a good amount of animation that they've been involved in, but nobody wants to. If a new anime is coming out, nobody's going to be going to them for distribution. They're going to be going to a bunch of other places who have less bullshit. Harmony Gold is a relic from the early days of distribution, where you had a very Wild West attitude,
and they never grew up as the landscape grew. That's the big thing. Like other ones, such as ADV and manga films and all of those, either they quietly consolidated into other things, or they grew up with the landscape. Harmony Gold never did. Harmony Gold was like, fuck this is our toy.
Yeah. And I think it's cool. That's also why I brought up the founders' legal issues, because it kind of lends credence to that whole, not just that whole bully thing, but that whole fuck you guys, these are my toys regarding his money. I mean, I'm not sure if Frank is still, and Frank is apparently still around. He's 93 years old. And
Jesus.
But supposedly management of the company is handled by his daughter.
Not surprising.
Yeah.
Gotta keep the tight-fisted hold over the dynasty, right?
Yeah, and I haven't heard very nice things about one of the other people involved with the company, Tommy Yoon.
In the end, Harmony Gold will likely change once they have no choice. When the final dregs of interest in the stateside Robotech scene dwindle to a low murmur, something where it's just unsustainable to continue holding on to this IP that they're doing fuck all with. They're going to have to change their tune. Otherwise, they're going to go bankrupt. And, well, shareholders don't like that.
I don't know. I get the feeling that Harmony Gold is going to be one of those companies that's like change or draw 25, and they choose the draw 25 option.
They chose that twice.
They've chosen that many, twice, if not more. They will die. They will get dragged into the sunset kicking and screaming. They will not go quietly.
If this is the hill they choose to die on, I am going to laugh my ass off when somebody big, somebody huge, whoever it might be, whether it's from Japan or the West, goes, okay, you've had enough time with that toy now. Now you have to give it back.
In all likelihood, it's probably going to be Big West.
I can see it. Absolutely.
I mean, they were pushing for Harmony Gold to lose their rights outside of the U.S. And Vega brings up the movie. I talked about this earlier. That movie may as well be considered dead in the water. It is not happening. Much in the same way that any Shadow Chronicles stuff is not happening.
And you know, allowing Macross to stream is all well and good. It's, in my opinion, too little too late in many cases, because while, yeah, you could stream it now, people have been pirating it for ages, obviously. Or buying the official releases, even though they're an inferior product and old. And there's nothing new done with from Harmony Gold's side of Macross anytime soon.
I mean, I mentioned this earlier, Vega, but up until 2017, they were still insisting that Shadow Chronicles wasn't dead. The first movie came out in 2006, and they're still insisting, no, we're working on it.
Right.
Yeah, and I'm sure that the 1.0 release of Star Citizen is just around the corner.
and I'm sure that D&D 6e will actually be good.
But I think if there's any final thing, is that I am a firm believer in karma, and one way or another, all I have to do is be patient, and people who are that level of bully always end up getting theirs.
Monk, I think one of the watchwords in the monastery at this point is be patient and things will change for the better. Because aren't you and I constantly validated about all we had to do was be patient and there was Armored Core 6. And all we had to do was be patient and there was Devil May Cry 5. And all we had to do was be patient and there's XYZ new things that are awesome and good.
Yeah.
So patience is a watchword here.
Plus, every year around football season, I can always say, when it comes to the Cowboys, be patient. They'll find a way to fuck it up.
What's really funny is somebody took a picture of one of the current Cowboy cheerleaders with her grandmothers and then captioned it, current Cowboy cheerleader with cheerleaders from their last Super Bowl team. It was, I was like, I was like, that's funny. That's a good joke.
That's funny, but damn.
I'm pretty sure it was just that cheerleader's grandmothers.
Hmm.
And I'm pretty sure that they were also probably the ones to make the joke, because it looked like it was shared on their personal page.
Yeah. Look, all I'm saying is that's the only team I know to get clowned on by their own mayor.
What, Toronto's mayor doesn't clown on the Maple Leafs?
No.
Oh, well, Toronto's mayor doesn't know how to have fun then.
There may have been one of them who did over the years. I haven't checked.
Well, I mean, it is Canada, where apparently fun isn't allowed most of the time anymore because of stupid people. But we won't get into that.
Mm-hmm.
Sony should buy out Harmony Gold.
No.
No, thank you.
No,
thank you. Not with Sony basically being a U.S. company now. No, thank you.
No.
And not just a U.S. company, a California company.
Now, if Big West bought out Harmony Gold, that I'd be willing to endorse wholeheartedly.
That'd be fucking great.
It'd be great, and it would also be a case of dramatic irony, and I love that shit.
We're here for that bit.
Yeah. But I think with that'll wrap it up for this particular episode. I know this one was a short one, but I wanted to get this one out of my system because what we've got next week, oh boy. I have been putting this off for the better part of 2 years.
And I don't blame him, because I'm going to have to be there too.
Oh, yes.
Sweet merciful Buddha, take me now.
I want to say the opening line so bad.
You do it, and I swear to God, I will find you and I will murder you.
I think the only disappointment you'll have is that you can only do it
No! Once. John, play the rake button for yourself right now.
No! I refuse!
Press the rake button, you set me up, here it comes. Hi, my name's Xanatrix Sidare, and on my friend's 30th birthday, I died.
I took my headphones off for that, you motherfucker.
Motherfucker, I didn't even say the actual opening, but still play the rake button. It's your own goddamn fault.
I had him muted when he did.
You and I had the same fucking idea. No.
You set yourselves up for it. It's your own goddamn fault.
Yeah. Now, that being said, there will be a few reprieves. Later tonight, I'm going to be doing another demo grab bag. And as far as this week goes, tomorrow we've got the Parliament of Geeks covering Knights and Magic, which I still find funny as hell that I somehow ripped that series off without realizing it. Tuesday, Animane is going to be coming in to talk about Bond of the Blade, which managed to get its Kickstarter funding in less than 5 hours, give or take. Tuesday, I'm going to be talking with Jonathan Wright again for Mecha vs. Kaiju because he's relaunching that Kickstarter next month.
Nice.
Thursday, the plan is to do the Dynamism episode on Hellas that I had planned for last week. And of course, on Friday, Zan and I are going to be going through Atlas Adventum because our 3-in-1 rule applies. And Saturday, because it's the last Saturday of the month, the dev of Blood, Sweat, and Steel is going to be coming in to do a one-shot of that. And obviously, next week for GeekWatch, it is going to be a Reconstruction Week, tackling the one Kamen Rider series that was on the shortlist. And thank you, Brian, for joining the crusade. Because he just resubbed.
Yep.
And
yeah, we're reconstructing Kamen Rider Ghost, y'all.
Mm-hmm. Some of you may recall when we did the episode ranking the Heisei Kamen Rider, I put Ghost at the bottom. It was the only one that was at the lowest tier.
Yep.
And there is good reason for that. Although if I were to redo that one and put Amazons in there, where do you think Amazons would have gone?
I'm not so sure.
If we're talking as a whole, I'd say maybe C, maybe low C. It had its flaws, but it had its good points.
Yeah, I could certainly see C. If it was, I'd imagine it. And let me double check. Yeah, we put Ghost at F.
Of course we did.
We did, but for the purposes of that, because we're focusing on the TV series, we didn't put Amazons on the list. But since the first season was great, second season and the movie was better, but the damage was done.
Yeah, pretty much.
So I could see it evening out as a C. If we're just talking first season, it would have been a B bordering on A.
Yeah, no, that's my feeling too, yeah.
But I have to be a holist in this thing, and I have to hold to my principles even when it's not convenient.
Right.
And
anyway, pleasure as always. See you guys tomorrow.
Yeah. But that is a story for another week, and I really, really, really hope I can find enough liquor to get me through that, because good Lord, give me strength.
I share your pain, sir.
But until then, on behalf of the good brothers present and not present, my name is Mildra, I am your gaming monk, and join the watch.